Welcome to Health Coach for Women. Intentional living for more happiness and fulfillment in your everyday life with your host, Marsha Roopchand-Walker. Join Marsha as she shares her own personal wellness journey, as well as stories from our guests that will enlighten and inspire you to move towards better health and happiness. Now, here's your host, Marsha Roopchand-Walker.
Love is the highest frequency you can vibrate in and the highest state of consciousness. In the pure frequency of love, there is gratitude, creation, happiness, and oneness. Love is all is you. That is today's quote. Welcome to another episode of Health Coach for Women, and I am your host, Marsha. Now, this podcast is a place where we find alternative and holistic solutions for better health, happiness, and wellness. Okay, so I did start out a little differently today. I wanted to try something different. So before we get started, please go ahead and like and hit that subscribe button and be sure to share at the end of the podcast. Now, today's topic. What are we talking about today? Today, we're talking about how to operate at a love frequency, right? How to operate at a love frequency for better relationships. At a love frequency is the highest level, right? It's the highest level where you can be operating in that place of love. Let me start by saying, what is a love frequency, right? That's the first thing that I should be talking about. What is a love frequency, right? So the love frequency, it describes the energy that emanates from a person's heart, right? That they put out into the atmosphere, right? And so, when you meet people, right? When you encounter different people, you encounter different personalities. Along with that comes different energy, right? And you know that we are energy. And with that, you have some people who stay operating at a low frequency, right? Operating from a place of fear rather than love. And so what happens when we operate in a place of fear? When we operate in a place of fear rather than love, we don't always make the best decisions, right? We operate more fear-based rather than love-based. And we're always in that place of survival mode. We're always in a place of being afraid of the unknown, taking chances, making radical decisions, right? Because we are operating from a lower frequency. We are operating from, some people, you can also say, or some people will say, it's a more negative, right? And so you have some people who are more negative in their outlook and in their approach in life, where everything is always wrong. They always complain about everything, right? Doesn't make them a bad person. It's just that they just not operating and maybe in a place of where you are, right? Where you are operating at a higher frequency. And so, but when you are able to do that, then you will see that things will become much better and clearer for you and your path as well. And so when you radiate that positive energy, you attract, right? You can attract others around you, right? And so they say laughter is contagious, right? Certain things, your energy is contagious, right? So you've heard of these things before. When you encounter someone you may not know, or when you walk into a room, you can feel that the energy may be off, or you can feel that the energy is good. You feel these things, right? And that's that body intelligence, your intuition. Sometimes you can just feel it, right? It can be a look, it's just the energy, something is not right. And so we have to learn how to be able to operate from a higher frequency, because that is the highest level that a person can operate from, and it can only do you good. And so what are some of those tips of operating at a love frequency? First, one of the things we need to do is by cultivating that self-love, right? And that's important. We need to cultivate self-love and learning to love ourselves, right? Learning to love ourselves, because if we can't fully love ourselves, how can we truly really say that we love others? And part of that self-care, self-love rather, part of that self-love is loving ourselves, doing the things that we need to do for our own health and wellness, our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health. We need to practice those things. And when you are living in a stressful environment or working in a stressful environment, it can be difficult. It can be difficult, right? But you always have to remember that you have to patiently persevere. Everything that you're striving to achieve may not happen overnight. It's a daily practice. So you have to keep with it. And that's why you have to find your own outlet of the things that you enjoy, the things that you enjoy doing that makes you happy, that brings you that fulfillment. You have to do that. Practicing gratitude, right? Practicing gratitude is another. Practicing gratitude is another helpful way to help you operate at a love frequency, right? And so when you wake up in the morning, what are some of do you wake up in the morning saying thank you? You know, what are you grateful for? What are some things that you are grateful for today? And making that a part of your everyday things that you should do, right? And learning how to, number 3, the next one is learning how to listen. Listen with empathy, okay? Listening with empathy. And so that is essential for operating the love frequency. When we show others that we care about their feelings as well as their experiences, even though it may not be our own, but to show someone that you care in regard to how they feel, what it does is build deeper connections and increases trust in relationships. And this also works in the work environment as well, not just for around your family and things, but also in the work environment as well. Communicate with compassion. Okay, communicate with compassion. I love this because this is so important, because communication is the key to everything. The communication is the key to maintaining fulfilling relationships, right? Communicating, learning how to listen, right? What is part of communication? Part of communication is learning how to listen, listening with empathy, right? Listening from a different perspective, right? Putting your place in that person's shoes. So being able to communicate with compassion, right? It makes what it does is helps you to not only have the compassion, but to give and share kindness with another, right? Avoiding blame as well as criticism, without focusing on your own feelings, right? Put your feelings aside at that moment as you are trying to have a level of understanding, because we want to be able to overstand rather than just simply understand. But in order to do that, we need to listen with empathy, right? And communicate with compassion. All right. And so the next thing, this one is also so important in how we can operate at a love frequency. And this is a major, major one. It's a major one that we need for as far as to open our heart, because some people are still with their hearts closed due to past experiences. Due to past experiences, you experience the experience that wasn't so pleasant, right, become your protector. It's a way now that you will protect yourself by closing off. And so when we close off, what else is closed off? Parts of communication, right? Parts of communication, your parts of listening is also closed off, because you don't want to hear what that person has to say. But when we operate from a place of forgiveness, learning how to forgive, right? Learning how to forgive, we can then open our hearts and be more forgiving and less judgmental and harboring bad feelings and ill will. So practicing forgiveness, because what that does is open the heart, all right? And so a partner holding on to grudges and resentment does us no good, because what that does is it blocks the positive energy. It blocks raising your frequency, right? Raising that vibration. It blocks those things. And there's no room for anything else when you're operating that way, all right? When you're harboring bad feeling and holding on to resentment. And another one that I want to talk about is living authentically. Being authentic, okay? Being authentic. This one is so important as well. I mean, they're all important. These are just some of the things that help you to be able to operate in that place of love frequency. And it's living authentically. It's essential for operating the love frequency when we are true to ourselves, right? To thine own self be true, to thine self be true. When we are true to ourselves, we attract people who appreciate and accept us for who we are, okay? And not for the superficial things of what we look at, or what we look like, and how we dress, and what the amount of our clothes are, and what, none of that is important. What's important is the heart, right? That's what's important. What's important is what's in a person's heart. That is what's important. And being intentional with your actions, being intentional with how you interact and deal with people, right? And so if you're choosing, it's all about choice, right? It's all about what we choose to do, because we have the ability to choose what we desire. If we want to operate at a place of high frequency, a love frequency, okay? And again, just to go over some more now about being intentional, and making a choice, right? We have to be willing to make the choice to choose, because operating at a love frequency is a choice, right? Just like having your own happiness, wanting happiness, it's something that we have to work on with ourselves. It's something we have to work on. Now, you may know this already about me and my story, my whole journey with my life, right? And so for me, when I had that awakening, I had that moment, it started with the forgiveness, right? The forgiveness of forgiving my father, right? For who he was not, okay? Who he was not, but forgiving him for who he was. And I could not change the past. I could not change who he was. I was just a kid, right? And so when you're dealing with certain things, like maybe from your past and your childhood, and things that you couldn't change, right, about that other person, whether it's a parent, a loved one, or whoever, remember, that individual is going through their own personal struggle, right? They are going through their own personal struggle. And so again, it goes back to if they cannot be there for themselves, how can you hold them accountable for them not being there for you, right? But as a child, we don't know this, we don't understand that, right? We're just kids. We're just wanting the love from our parent. We're just wanting, the good from our parents, right? And so his absence left me feeling resentful, left me feeling angry, but I had to move past that. And I had to move past that by forgiving. Now, some of you, your stories may be a little different. Some of you may not have had that experience. You may have had experience where you grew up in a family with both your mom and your dad, and you had a lovely upbringing, right? But maybe it was something else. Maybe it was a bad relationship. Maybe it was the death of a loved one that took you to a dark place, whatever it is, right? But it's learning to move past that so that you can elevate to a higher level, right? And that higher level of a love frequency. It's so important. And when we can love ourselves unconditionally, when we can love ourselves and accepting who we are without the judgment, without passing the judgment on ourselves, without being so harsh on ourselves, right? We're able to be more open, more free, and to give more lovingly, right? And to be more generous and kind to ourselves as well as others in the process. And so practicing gratitude, right? And I'm just doing a recap. I'm just going over some of the things that we can do. What are some of the ways that we can practice gratitude? What are some of the ways that we can practice gratitude? Practicing gratitude simply of saying thank you, the things that you are grateful for, right? Being okay with where you are, keeping a positive outlook of where you're headed. Because everything that we are experiencing is to bring us to the next level of our own growth and evolution, right? So that is important, your practice of gratitude. I went over again, listening with empathy, learning how to listen rather than to be heard. Sometimes we just want to speak, and so that we can be heard. But what about listening to the other party? What about hearing what they have to say, right? You matter, but doesn't the other person matter? You matter, right? But a part of growing and a part of becoming is learning how to listen with empathy, right? As well as be able to communicate with that compassion. You want to be able to express yourself where you can have the emotional intelligence, right? Having that emotional intelligence. And what do I mean by emotional intelligence? It's about basically being in touch with your emotions, right? But being able to manage it in a way of the emotions so it's not detrimental to us, to our own selves and our own health and well-being, but to those others around you as well. And so the emotional intelligence is important, and that's very important. And so I didn't have that on my list, but that's another thing, emotional intelligence, right? And so why do we need emotional intelligence? Well, no one is saying to disconnect from your emotions. No, not at all. You need to be in touch with your emotions. It's a part of who you are, your emotions, right? Whether it's anger, whether it's joy, happiness, fulfillment, resentment, bitterness, these different emotions that a person can have, it can either serve you or not, right? And so what you have to do, using your own level of intelligence, your own smarts, your own inner wisdom, is by knowing that you being able to express yourself in a way that is positive, in a way that is expressive, right? In a way that penetrates and is able to be received by the other person. And so when we are angry and bitter and frustrated, right, ask yourself that question: how does it come out in a conversation? It's not going to come out too well, is it? Right? There's going to be body language, right? There's going to be body language, facial expressions, maybe some yelling and screaming. And where does it go when it comes to having better relationships? Does it bring you closer or further apart? And I'm sure it pretty much bring you further apart. So when you are not able to manage those emotions in an intelligent way, having that emotional maturity, and I've talked about this before in past podcasts, right? Having that emotional maturity. When you're able to have that, you can have those well thought about conversations where you are able to express yourself in a way that is beneficial, a way that is positive, in a way that is received by the other party. Okay, so that is important. And so all of these things are beneficial. All of these things plays a part in how we operate in the world, how we operate at our jobs, how we operate with our families at home, how we operate in general. And being able to do that will take you in high places, okay? It'll take you in high places. And and I just want to go back now on, I talked about forgiveness, but I want to talk on living authentically. When you live authentically, when you can truly be free and accept who you are, being your own self, not trying to be anyone else, not trying to compare, because too many times we try to compare ourselves to others. That's what makes us unique, is being ourselves. Being unique, being our own individual person, without the perfection, without the lies, but just being our true selves. Our true selves would help us in setting us free, will help us in operating at that love frequency, at that elevated level. Okay, now you've heard of the saying, right? Cool vibes, right? And high energy, high vibrations. All right, why do people say that, right? Is there something to that? Yes, there is. There's definitely something to that, right? And of course, there are other things I talked about, right? And being in a good mood, being in a mood of joy and happiness. What happens when we are not operating from that place? Think about it. What happens when we are not operating in that place? Because how it works is the more we focus on the things that we don't want, the more we bring those things to us. And so, again, it goes back to your thoughts. It all goes back to your thoughts and how you think and how you view and perceive the world. And so if you view the world as this negative, cold, evil place, right? And you see your glass as half empty, that is what your reality is going to look like. Yes, there are people in the world who is not nice. Yes, there are evil people in the world, right? Who cares more about profit more than people, right? Yes, there are people who are out to do bad things, but there are also good people who are out to do good in the world. There are also good people who want to make sure that their employees are operating to the best as possible. There are good people who want to see their fellow neighbor or their fellow companion or whatever, friend, mate, lover, whatever, to be the best of what they can be, to be the best. Okay. And so knowing that, and that's what they call that yin and yang, the good and the evil, right? So there's always these polarities, right? There's always these opposites. But just like you would say, they would say the light and the dark, right? The light and the dark. But we need to know that we can change the world just by simply our thoughts. We can change the world simply by how we think, and not just what it is that how we think. It's what is in the center of the heart. What is in the center of the heart? The center of the heart is the most valuable thing, the most valuable gift of all, because with that vibration of love, with the energy of love, you are unstoppable. it's like the highest, how do I explain it? It's like the highest plateau of all, right? In the world of consciousness and how we are in the world and what we bring to the world, and people who care about the planet and care about the place that we live, right? And so there's a love for humanity, right? And I may be going a little off. I think it's relevant and it's related, but without taking you too far off. But knowing and understanding that your place in the universe and how and the role that you play and what you do based on the way you think, it plays a part, right? It plays a part in your reality. It plays a part in your day-to-day life, your relationships, how you interact with others. It all stems from how you think. And so if we can change the way we think and take actionable steps to improve the way we think, right? Doing things such as exercising and breath work and meditation and all these different things that you have, and your spirituality and your faith, reading your books of whatever your faith is, and reading and diving into the self and spirituality and the higher creator, all of these things, the higher power, God, or whatever you want to call it. When we are able to do that, when we are able to connect in a way that's so powerful, so loving, so gentle and kind, there is just, we become unstoppable. And so when you're in that place, when you are, or we're in a place where, the fear wants to take over, when the powers that be want to instill us with fear and all these things that we should be fearful of, we need to not pay attention to that so much, not make that our focus, because what that does is bring stress. What that does is it affects our mental state, right? Our mental as well as our physical, because we know that stress is the main cause for illnesses and disease, stress related. And we know how stress can weaken the immune system. So we need to focus on a more higher frequency of love. We need to focus more on that and less on the things that puts us in a place of where we are not able to fulfill the things that we need to fulfill, that will not bring us joy, right? And so we need to focus on those things. And some of the things you can do of what I mentioned here, right? The things that, get out in nature, right? What is a way for you to start doing, to really start to connect, right? And really start to have this feeling like you are connected and feeling like you are one, right? And so I'm trying to figure out how to word it in a way that's simple, something as simple as getting out in nature, right? Start feeling and start enjoying the simple things in life, right? These simple things brings appreciation, right? What if you couldn't go out, right? What if we were back in 2020 where we couldn't go out? We couldn't enjoy the sunshine. And if we went out, we had to cover up and all of these things. And we couldn't really be the way we wanted to be. We couldn't connect with others the way we wanted to connect. All right, but we have that now. We have that. And so let's be grateful. Let's practice gratitude. Let's get out in nature. Let's connect with the things around us, right? The trees, the birds, the squirrels. Let's get out and practice that gratitude. And that's what I love with me when I'm out in nature. I just feel so connected, right? I feel so connected, not only with all the things that is around me, but the one who created it all. I just feel so connected. So maybe for you, it might be different, but for me, that is what I feel. And it's just this beautiful feeling. And whenever I can do it, I get out and do it. So our way to how to operate at a love frequency is by doing all the things that I mentioned, right? And that mindset is the most important thing of all, changing the way we think, looking at life through a more positive lens, with the glass is half full, more than half full, rather than empty. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. I tried to keep it simple as I can. I repeated some things often because I wanted it to sink in. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, bye for now. And one more thing. If you haven't purchased the book already, as well as the journal, they are available on Amazon. Okay? The book, as well as the Intentional Self-Care Journal, is available. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening to Health Coach for Women with your host, Marsha Roopchand-Walker. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time.